Welcome to How to Yu-Gi-Oh! Expectations. Chapter 1. Hello there, fellow students. It's the start of the new year. It's the start of 2025. Yes. And so in this video, I'm going to be talking about the expectations I have for Konami this year and how I feel, right? Things should go forward, in my opinion. I also want to say as you can see, there are certain changes that have happened on my channel, especially with this video. I'm sure you're seeing the latest thumbnail is looking much more streamlined. Get ready to see some new things happening on this channel, especially with the video itself. There are new things, new ways of doing things that I'm discovering, and make sure to tune in as this is going to be a pivotal year for me, I do feel anyway. With that being said, let's get on with the rest of the video. Chapter 2. And so I think this is something that needs to be acknowledged by Konami, which is hand trap acknowledgement. I do believe where Yu-Gi-Oh! Is at the moment, especially we've seen from 2024, is that hand traps are a severe problem in Yu-Gi-Oh! They are too much. And they are being, especially when we saw with Snake Eye and we saw with other builds.
You are absolutely right.
There are too many hand traps in the game that are being used by decks. It is an overflow. And it does need to be acknowledged that there's some kind of balancing issue that needs to be put in place. Now, the addition of the Dominus cards, I do feel, is the correct approach, where we put in some traps that have hand traps that have very strong effects, but with high limiting potential, meaning that you can only play a certain amount of hand traps. We have seen with the current Dominus Purge and Dominus Impulse added in decks that the hand trap usage has gone down somewhat. So we've gone down from 20 back to 15, 12, but I feel this is too much. And I do feel going forward, this is a significant issue that Yu-Gi-Oh! Has at the moment, and we do need to address the hand trap situation. I do feel, especially going forward, hand traps need to be addressed either by, I would say, introducing more cards that are similar to Dominus cards, or doing something as we had with the Elements approach, where the archetypes that are released in the future have inbuilt hand traps, meaning you don't need to play as many outside hand traps as before. I think that was part of the reason why I think Elements was loved, was the archetype had an inbuilt hand trap, meaning that when the deck played, you didn't play as many, the deck didn't have so many hand traps, and it was really quite strong. I do believe the aspect of having in-deck hand traps in the archetype itself is a good idea, and I think is something that should still be implemented going forward. So yeah, that is the opinion I do have. Hand traps do need to be acknowledged, and there needs to be a solution to this issue that we have. Let's get on to the next point. Chapter 3. But we see in the extra deck, your extra deck space is severely hammered. You don't have as much space in your extra deck as most other decks do. And the amount of experimentation you have is extremely limited. And this is, I feel, the correct way to do engines. So where engines are at the moment with Fiendsmith, especially, I think is a good start, and I don't really have complaints with this form of engine creation. I feel this form of engine creation is correct. Equally, when we have the creation of Ryziel that has come out in the end of last year, I feel this is a sort of archetype and engine that is correct as well. Appropriate locking to archetypes in decks, meaning that we can't mix, is the way to go. I have no issues with the Ryziel archetype. I have no issue with the Fiendsmith archetype. I have no issue so far with what has been released for what is our current meta so far. It has been a good learning experience that Konami has put in. And I do feel, obviously, that this is the way to go. Locks on engines. Bigger engine. More cost, more price. Chapter 4. So let's talk about it with the final point, goals assessment. Where Konami is at the moment is where it is a little bit lost. But we can see from 2024, from last year, we can see, right, that there is a sense of let's get rid of toxic Yu-Gi-Oh! Okay, let's get rid of things that bog down the game in a toxic manner, especially for the TCG.
Facts.
Cards that don't allow interaction and don't allow play should be removed from the game. For example, with generic negates being an example. Removing generic negates for the game, removing the perfect answers or perfect solutions to have always the perfect answer for everything, which is a fantastic move of removing generic negates. Again, we have the aspect of toxic nature being removed by limiting all the floodgates to one and banning one of the most toxic floodgates that we have in the game. I also do agree that I think this goal should continue. Another aspect of Yu-Gi-Oh! That I see is fantastic that Konami is implementing as well is they are implementing to bring the prices down for cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! By, for the first time ever in 2024, having 2 rarity collections. And we are seeing as well that we are going to be getting 2 rarity collections this year. That is something I do speculate, as we are getting one in April of this year, and we should be getting another near the end of the year. I do feel that this is something that is going to be a staple going forward, and this will be a fantastic goal to have going forward for Yu-Gi-Oh! This brings hope to Yu-Gi-Oh! This brings a light at the end of the tunnel, and sure, there may be things that we may not agree with so far as a community, but I feel 2 rarity collections a year, every year going forward, starting from 2024, is a step in the right direction. But overall, the goals for Yu-Gi-Oh! With the goals assessment, as I'm saying, needs to be consistent, and there needs to be a unified goal as to, or endpoint to where we are going in Yu-Gi-Oh! So what would I like to see and what are my expectations? Well, I would like to see what was started in 2024 to be continued. Every single toxic floodgate should be banned. And this should include now not just traps, but monsters as well. So the philosophy should expand to be monsters, spells, or traps. If we currently have monsters, spells, or traps that play or facilitate a toxic atmosphere or toxic environment, remove them from the game. Another thing I'd like to see as well is the aspect of bringing price to effects. So in ban lists, I would like to see that, for example, let's bring more price to effects or to cards. So if, let's say, a fixed example with the Fiendsmith package. Say, with the Fiendsmith package, I think it's a good package and I think it's healthy. But I feel Closed Moon allows access to that package to be very, very easy, and allows this engine to be splashed way too easily, and I feel there should be a cost with that, where you can still everyone can access the engine, but there's some sort of cost to access that engine, and that's why I would say is removed Closed Moon. Not only does banning Closed Moon in the future allow this engine to be accessed by everyone, but it also means that going forward, this engine has a cost to it, and it's not exactly extremely easy to get into this engine. Sure, it is still a good engine, but it is not fully accessible, and there's some sort of form of cost to accessing this engine. I do see that with Yu-Gi-Oh! At the moment, we do tend to have an issue of, especially when it comes to our ban lists going forward, which we have improved, by the way. I believe 2024 has been a fantastic use of ban lists from TCG. Let it not be understated. With only the last ban list in December of 2024 leaving a lot to be desired. But again, for TCG, we have to take into consideration this has been a fantastic and massive improvement on ban lists. So all I'll say is I'd like to see this continue. I'd like to see the aspects of everything that has been done in 2024 continue in 2025, and a bigger expansion and a clearer goal as to where we're going. That's it. Final chapter. So, let's go to the overall conclusion. What have I got to say about my expectations for 2025 in Yu-Gi-Oh? Well, what I'm expecting from Konami is I'm expecting cheaper prices for Yu-Gi-Oh, especially for the competitive scene, which we will be getting. I am expecting as well a unified message in the ban list and on what cards are legal and the playstyle of Yu-Gi-Oh going forward. That Konami will be promoting more healthy play styles going forward and removing toxicity from the atmosphere in Yu-Gi-Oh. Would like to see that more and would like that expanded. Would not just like that to be on just floodgates, but on cards that facilitate toxic play or toxic behavior. Another thing I would like to see is I do feel we need as well to deal with the hand trap situation, as I've mentioned before. This does need addressing, and this does need some sort of rule or whatever, but whatever it is, hand traps need to be addressed. Engines, I am gonna say it right now, it is a hot take. I think they're okay where they are. If we're going to be having engines like Fiendsmith, it is fine. While yes, it would be ideal to ban Closed Moon, it's not the end of the world, and this is a sacrifice or a middle ground of where engines are at the moment. If we maintain engines like Fiendsmith and get engines similar to Fiendsmith where they're very, very big and do a lot, that's fine. What we shouldn't be having is engines which are just one-card combos. I would like to see less one-card combos and more big and extravagant engines like Fiendsmith. And finally, what I would also like to see is I'd like to see what the attitude that we had on the ban list, especially for the latest ban list of how it was presented. I would love that to continue. I feel that was one of the best aspects of 2024, and that was the best way of presenting the ban list. I would also like for us as well, Konami, to implement a timescale, a proper timescale of when the ban list will be released, giving us an exact time and place. Not only, yes, I know this is something that again they have changed and are not wanting to do, but I feel time of when we know when the ban list is out is going to be fantastic. And how it was implemented last year is how we would like it implemented now going forward, with essentially just time there as well of when it is coming out. So overall, there's just a few little, things that can be touched upon here. But if we follow how things have been going from last year, if that is increased, and Konami follows what they've been doing, I do feel Yu-Gi-Oh! Is going to a better place. And this year, I would feel as well, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is starting in a much stronger position than it was in Yu-Gi-Oh's TCG's life cycle anyway, in a long time. We're starting with majority of the card pool being accessible, cheap, only 2 of the major hand traps being expensive, and in the next 2 to 3 months, those hand traps or those expensive staples will be available. Meaning that when April hits, the entire Yu-Gi-Oh! Competitive scene will be affordable. This is again this will be an unprecedented in TCG standards, as at this point, every single competitive staple card that you need will be accessible to everyone. Not only is this going to mean that entering tournaments is going to be fantastic, but it'll be an overall boost to the game as a whole, okay? And that's all I've got to say. So tune in next time, as I'm going to talk about other things on this channel. Hope to see you soon.
We come to the end of this video. So, as I like to say, you are one step closer to becoming a Yu-Gi-Oh! Master. My fate, right, is in your hands.